Uh, Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I go by the name of Mkondisi Mkhaliphi. This is another episode of Blacknificent show. I'm not alone, as usual. I have a leader here, a leader Shogza. Leader, can you greet us?
No, Lita, let me take this opportunity to thank you and thank the organization, my brother, Arise Black Child, for allowing us an opportunity to come and give an input in this very historic day of Pico Day. Of course, so we thank the organization comrades for trying to get young people to be together and discuss issues of importance. So I think I'm honored to be part of this show, comrades. Thank you very much, when comrade host. When I'm going this Mkhaliphi, I'm very honored to be part of the show.
Yeah, leadership. This is Shogza, and I didn't introduce you well later because you are a political leader. I might miss some of the positions and some of the history, and people might be interested to who is Shogza and how is he irrelevant when we are discussing student politics and activism. Leader, can you introduce yourself politically?
All right, later. No, let me begin by giving obviously a brief background as to who I am. If I get to that element of then introducing myself politically, because my name is Lehlogonolo Mohlape. I was born in a very small village in Limpopo, so I'm a vegetarian myself, and then moved to one township of Tembisa when I was very young. I was still in my primary ages. So you must understand that living in a space like a township, it gets us to where we are today. So then I attended school in Calfontaine Secondary. That's where I started realizing my potential in terms of activism, because I then joined COSAS from high school. So that's where my political activism was nurtured in COSAS when I was still back in high school. So of course, finished matric, came to the University of Johannesburg, joined political organizations, and then I then happened to be elected as first time I was elected as a political officer of the EFF Student Command in UJ Doornfontein campus. And then luckily enough again I was elected again as chairperson of that branch of the EFF Student Command in DFC. So that is my brief political background, leader. Those are, so to say, credentials.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, he was our chairperson of the branch EFFSC at Doornfontein. Yes, later. It's very relevant on the topic that we're about to discuss. Topic about student politics and activism, which is quite a thing that's part of our reality and part of our day-to-day life. And yeah, I think it's very important that we look at it and then it must be discussed. But can you give us a brief explanation on what is this? What is the student politics and activism to someone who doesn't know and understand? Because we may have viewers who are not even at university. What is it?
No, I think when my fellow host, when I'm Mqondisi, my brother, I think we must understand that itself being a student activist yourself, or activism itself, you speak of activating, right? So, and it means there's something that informs our activism, and there's a certain kind of or a group of people that must be activated. In what sense, right? So we exist in spaces which were created not for particularly Black people. We exist in spaces like the universities, whereby in general terms it's like a Black man in a white man's world. So then we need activism to activate, especially those who are not aware of that situation and that condition. So in a sense, activism, my brother, student activism, it speaks to nurturing future leaders who exist in the spaces of institutions of higher learning, right? Because you are a student activist, being a student, you are a student only in a space of institution of higher learning. I think when you are in high school, you are a learner, you're not a student. So, so it speaks to that space, right, my brother?
Yeah.
It's to bring about awareness about the space that we are within, that we exist within, to try and then change and better those conditions using whatever form of existence that informs us. So basically, student activism, student politics, my brother, speaks to that. Future leaders being nurtured in a space of higher learning and try to activate and politicize masses and students at large.
Exactly. But leadership, it is true that some people may know that there is something of politics, but they fail to understand, Bori, how is it important that there are such structures? Like, what is even the importance of student politics? Because in high school, when we were there, though we had those representatives they were called prefects, but politicizing this much as we see in university. So one way may want to know what is the use of the student politics to begin with.
Yeah, no. Let me do this. Yeah, it's fine. I think we must give a historical perspective about student activism and why is it so much needed. And of course, you are right. Prefects in high school, they are just an extension of management. They just managing on behalf of the management, which is maybe the school principal and staff. They don't really even understand the issues pertaining students. So I think if we give a brief historical perspective about student activism, my brother, I think in the early 60s and the late 70s, there was a movement called the Black Consciousness Movement, right?
Yes, sir.
That was, I think, the fathers of that movement is the likes of Biko. I'm bringing this element to try and show what there was a situation at hand. You see?
Yes, sir.
There was a situation at hand, but it was not understood by the people who exist within that space.
Exactly.
So leaders who are student leaders who understand the spaces that they exist within, which are in your universities, your colleges, then they realize that there's a need for activism within these spaces, because really education, my brother, it's one sector whereby the buyer, you know, when you're a buyer of a product,
yes, sir,
is being blamed for not receiving the product properly.
Yeah.
You understand? Imagine you are buying a product, you are being blamed for buying that product, not buying it properly.
But you are not buying the right way.
but you are not buying the right way. You are buying education when you are failing, that they blame you. They don't see anything wrong in the method of teaching or learning that takes place, or the kind of education that they give us in the spaces, right? So then it becomes imperative of student leaders who are aware of the spaces that they exist within. Like the lack of Biko, they were aware of those spaces that time. We know that they were existing during the apartheid era. There were schools that were fundamentally built for Black people. Exactly. The education itself was very remedial. It was not any education that seeks to emancipate anyone mentally, because education is supposed to give us the capacities and the tools of being able to think, right?
Yeah.
So then we find ourselves in a situation whereby we exist in this situation or setup of a university model that rejects us, because it is not built in a way that we then can see ourselves within it. So as a student leader, it is up to you as a student leader to then activate the student to understand the setting and the setup of the institution, and then try to then change it structurally and systematically, so as to then it can feed the kind of being that is subjected to that space. You understand, my brother?
I get you, Leda. I get you. Another thing, Leda, what I've seen myself personally is that university is a big structure, and there are a lot of issues and matters that needs to be addressed, but we cannot all go and report them because the management cannot deal with everyone, and we need some representative, which is what student politics is all about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as the question you asked, my brother. So you are in a university yourself. You understand the setup, right?
Yeah.
And in most cases, many people, many students who exist within the space, they do not realize the space that they are within. Yes, as I was saying, my brother, that we really need to politicize students, because the reason why it's important that student politics is understood and there's a need for it to be seen as a necessary tool is because in the country that we exist in, my brother, education as a right that is enshrined within the constitution itself and the freedom charter, it's been commodified, right? It's been commodified. It means now we're buying a right, that our right. Imagine buying a right, right? So it becomes problematic when you buy a right, and it's a right that belongs to each and every young person in South Africa. So student leaders must understand now about themselves that there's a huge struggle that's why it needs student activism in actual sense, so that they can fight the system within the system, try and then open up the space of higher learning for other masses and masses of our Black brothers and sisters, which are subjected to harsh conditions in the townships, in the rural areas. Open up space, and it's up to student activists to push the government of the day towards that direction itself, right? And equally within the universities, conscientize the students themselves. That is why we had an element of fees must fall. It was speaking to the necessity of having student politics and student activism, because it speaks to our conditions as Black people and students within these spaces. True. You see, my brother? So it's very necessary that we have student activism. And I think the government of the day has been trying by all means necessary to try and suffocate and deliberately kill student activism because of what happened in 2015, 2016 through fees must fall. Yeah. So they did it with our parents, our grandparents, the masses themselves. They depoliticized the masses. True. So as to lull them into ignorance. You know, when the masses are depoliticized, the only thing that they can get, they become busy with it, right? Yeah. Even the students now, there's a deliberate attempt to try and lull the students into some state of just being nothing, because they understood that students which are politicized, they are going to be a problem towards the system and the government of the day. So we really need student politics, my brother. Another thing, leader, people who are not at varsity or who not in the student activism do not know that the university on its own is not with the student. So student activism may come in as a form of a lawyer to students, and some students do not understand that between a student and a varsity there must be an activist to stand for students, and some people do not know that the roles that you play and how the university suppresses students because maybe they may not have the power or the capacity to complain on their own, but the role that you guys play as activism, you can take us through on that so that people really see the importance. You can even put instances that people can recall. Yeah, I think when I'm a brother, as I've said, it's always a matter of awareness. You see, When you are not aware of something, there's just no way that you're going to see there's a problem. I'm saying that it's all a matter of awareness. There's just no way that you'll see something as problematic if you're not aware of it. So even students within these spaces, they are not aware of the problem that they're facing.
True.
Why is it the case that they're not aware? And it speaks to how we are socialized as persons and people, or Black people within our communities, because we are made to see the university as something that is an achievement itself.
Yes, sir.
We are made to see the education that we receive in the university or institution of higher learning to be something that must be glorified, that for you to be there, you are special, or there's something better about you.
Yeah.
Right? That's where this problem comes from. That is why when students, they come into these spaces, immediately when they come to spaces, they tend to think that they've already made it.
Mama, I made it.
You are one. So, but because of our Blackness, and obviously our Blackness informs our conditions back at home, and even the conditions that will then show themselves from time to time in these spaces, then starts to tell a different story about the student. They tell you, no, but okay, there's a challenge here. I thought me coming to VITS or coming to UJ, I was just going to come, be nice, meet a girlfriend in the park, pass, go to class, be fine in life. You see?
They think it's Netflix.
So when you get to the first thing that you, as a Black student, a Black person from a poor background, from poor communities, when you get to the university, the first thing that they ask you is 10,000 of registration fee.
Exactly.
And then you are brought back to life. Or so now what must happen? You start realizing there's a problem.
Yeah.
You see? But if really then student activists who are real student activists in the sense of the word itself, should understand that they cannot separate themselves with their communities. Therefore, it's up to us, as student leaders and activists, to even go to the high schools, primaries, really teach and inform and activate these young ones that really there's nothing better about the university. Actually, we are going to get to those spaces, they are going to reject you, they're going to depress you, they're going to oppress you, and they're going to suffocate you because simply you are Black.
True.
Because of your Blackness.
And you
right? So obviously, going to your question of say even giving an instance or an event to try and speak to this activism, I think fees must fall as an epoch itself.
Yeah,
it's very vital for us to understand. Well, I was fortunate to be part of the activists who were on the ground. I was not. I might have not been popular, of course, but I was on the ground. At UFC 2016, precisely 2016. I think I was arrested twice. Mainly and simply because of resisting the management of the universities, which are an extension of the government's rule, or they are an auxiliary of the government to rule over us within the spaces of high learning, right? So each and every time we try to activate students, sometimes you tend to become radical because we are trying to then infuse this message within the students, try to make them understand through speaking to them, engaging them. But sometimes you then tend to want to use radical measures to really make them understand. So we undertook such measures.
I know very well.
Yes.
I know very well what you're talking about, leadership.
So we were then forced to undertake those measures, and then we were arrested a couple of times. Yeah, but I guess it speaks to you being an activist. It's up to you. So I think I think it's necessary for people to understand, and students at large, especially those who are not in these spaces, to understand that there's nothing really spectacular about these spaces. They instead depress us.
To oppress. No, leadership, we can move. Now, another thing that I have noticed that students are very, very much ignorant when it comes to student politics. They think it's something that belongs to the people who wear yellow t-shirts or red t-shirt or whatever t-shirt that must be worn. But they do not see themselves. You will find that activists will be begging students to go and vote, will be begging students to do whatever, as if you leaders there standing there, you are just standing for yourself and it's nothing that involves them. So I want to know later, Ogoti, how do leaders deal with this? How do you make them feel like they are part of this thing? Because student politics is for every student that's in the university. No one shouldn't participate. But the truth is, we know 80% do not like this thing and they see it as your thing.
Well, I don't know if ignorant is the right word to use. Well, but of course there is a problem, right?
True.
And I think, like I've said, it goes back to how we are socialized from our communities and societies at large.
Yeah.
As young people, we are socialized to not even take an interest in politics, right? We are socialized in a way, like I've said, that we are being depoliticized, deliberately so
Sure.
as to deny the youth an opportunity of understanding the spaces, like I've been saying, right?
Yeah.
And of course, students then also, it's not a matter of being ignorant. I think if we're going to then go back in history, check the generation of 1970s and the 1960s, they were very much active, right? That is what led to even what we call today now June 16, that we celebrate so much. We go and drink, even though it's not about drinking. I think it's because students themselves were very much active. But why were they that active? What was special about them compared to these ones now? I think they were very much informed, those students at that time, and they understood their spaces and they understood their generational mission. So even us also, as the current generation, like Franz Fanon says, he says we should really, as young people, must identify our generational mission.
Yeah.
Out of relative obscurity, and we must then choose to fulfill it or betray it. I think our generation hasn't really identified, discovered their generational mission. That's why I think students don't have interest, because student activism has been reduced to elections, student elections, where you go to SRC elections. I think student activism is not about those things. True. In actual fact, elections don't bring us anything in the spaces of institution of higher learning. In actual fact, they create a situation whereby it breeds corrupt young leaders who are going to be future leaders, who are then going to corrupt more, you see. But it's only because we are devoid of real politics. We do not understand our spaces. We do not even identify ourselves within the space that we have seen, right? So I think if we can discover our mission as a generation, and then we'll be able to then go to the masses, go to the student themselves, politicize them, knowing very well that what you are trying to do, what are you spreading, what are you preaching as a student activist, not going there to preach politics of parties. You go there, you're wearing your red t-shirt, no, vote for me, I'm going to get there. You know you want blazers only. And then you reduce student activism to a situation of only existing when coming to SRC elections. And my brother, student activism goes way deeper than that, my brother. Because we have brothers and sisters who are languishing in the township, who are being denied opportunities to be part of these spaces and being given opportunity to also be afforded the chance to learn and capacitate themselves to better their lives, right? So it's up to us as activists to then understand our mission. For our mission is is to then speak about free, quality, decolonized education.
True.
If you understand that, each and every student that is here will understand that it's not about them who are here. It's about
It's
millions
true.
and thousands who are out there, which are excluded by the system.
Another thing, leader. Hey, you've mentioned an important point there. We have decapacitated the politics into SRC elections, and that's what we think politics is. There are real matters to be discussed. But another thing I have noticed myself, that people that are in these positions born themselves are not even having ideologies in their mind. They lack the politics on its own, because what has actually happened, those who have led before never had the politics, but they had SRC, they had that thing that when you are in power, you can do parties, as you were saying, you can just do anything. Where is this thing, or how can we start fixing that? In the position we have people of ideologies, we have people with political visions, with activism for real, to fight for students, those at home, those who are struggling with rest, those who are struggling with NSFAS and financial exclusion, academical exclusion, and whatever issues. How can we remake leaders of that caliber?
Yeah, my brother, when I'm Mqondisi, my brother,
Yeah,
I might be myself a member of a political party, right?
yeah,
But telling the truth, my brother, I think political parties themselves, they're very divisive. They're dividing students
true.
only on the basis of colors of political parties. Even though we share the same struggles, we go through the same problems, and we face a very harsh environment together. But we are divided across political lines in student politics and activism itself, right?
True.
So I'm going to take a stance and say, in my own view and opinion, is that student political organization themselves, they are reactionary and backward, in a sense that they divide students, and knowing very well that in our division we are going to fall, we are going to be conquered as divided student. So therefore, but after all, the problem is that we need to be organized. So these political parties, they bring an element of organizing us, right? That is why from time to time you find us as activists belonging to political parties at some point. Even though they might limit you, because political parties, they believe in certain ideologies that inform their thinking and their way of doing things, right?
Yeah. So, leader, before you continue,
I'm coming to
you are
separating.
You are separating the politicians and the activism,
and the activists.
Okay.
And I want to build up to your question, right? You spoke of a character. You are speaking of a character of a student activist, right?
Yeah.
And in most cases, this character is then informed and then nurtured by these political parties that we exist in.
True.
So then there must be a question to say, how are the politics within those organizations? Are they progressive to a certain extent that they are beneficial to students at large as a populace, or are they simply reactionary and they are only feeding you politics that then pushes you to the direction of also being part of the problem? You see? So that's how a student activist within the spaces and in this political organization build their character. They're informed by those organizations, right?
True.
But we need to shy away from that. We need to shy away from that. I think our character as student activists must be informed by pertinent issues that were on the ground, and the issues that we're facing on the ground. Those are the things that must inform us and how we behave as activists. And of course, as activists, at some point, like I've said, we're going to be future leaders of this country that really need real leaders who are capacitated and they have principles that they stand with, and really these leaders who are going to take out South Africa out of the mess that is within. But how are we going to produce these leaders, these characters that we're talking about of a student leader, a character that we need within these spaces? How are we going to produce this character within these organizations that are also part of the problem of this crisis that we're facing in this country?
Hey, we are going back.
So we must be informed by our immediate issues, like I've said. And obviously, a leader must read, my brother, to understand, fully understand at hand what's happening, right? So, that's how a character, a student activist build his character. It must not be informed by political parties or political organizations, but it must be informed by the struggle that we face every day. And the biggest challenge that we have as the generation now is having access to free education, right?
True.
And not really only free education in terms of it being a commodity, but equally freeing education from the Western European decolonial mindset, the kind of education that we are receiving. We understand very well that it does not speak to our issues, our problems. It does not speak, it do not resonate with the education that we are getting, right? So therefore, what must inform our character is to understand very well that no, here we have a crisis. And a crisis is that we have a generational mission that we have discovered and identified. And then how do we fulfill this generational mission? Are we going to fulfill it by building a character around being a person that is obsessed with SRC elections and winning and getting stipends? Or are we going to fulfill this mission through building a character that speaks to fighting these injustices and open up the space for learning and obviously freeing education from monetary value and also from this mindset, this Western mindset that we are being force-fed. So this character, my brother, and we currently do not have this character that we are talking about. We have very reactionary leaders. Leader, can you hear me? Come, I think
we're ready.
All right. Now, as you asked the question of a character of a student leader, my brother, I think that's how I understood your question.
Yeah.
In an essence, to put it plainly, my brother, we need a Black conscious student leader that understands himself or herself as a being first.
True, sir.
And then by virtue of understanding himself as a being within the spaces that rejects him as a character or her as a character, as a student activist, then we are going to be informed by the actions that needs to be taken. We purely need in attitude and mental attitude a clear Black conscious student activist that understands the realities and the problems of students in the spaces of institution of higher learning, not some people who are informed by political parties looking at themselves and then trying to really propel their political careers because they really are inspired by corruption or they think they can buy Mercedes.
Imagine being inspired by corruption.
We are subjected to such, my brother.
It's very true. It's very true. People will want this position just that they can have corruption. Another thing, leader, that's ruining a reputation for student activism and student politics, that these student activists, they're underperforming academically. So people will even think that if you are struggling academically, you can rise That way you will be comforted and welcomed well. So I don't think it's what it's the fact, but some of the people have had that influence. I'm talk to politicians, talk to someone aspiring, having desires to be a politician, or a student activist. It's that's not what the case is. It's not this. You must go there intentionally. But also again, let's address comrades that it is important to learn. It is important that we go out with the credentials there.
No, I think I think when a comrade Mkondisi, my brother, the notion of student activists not performing, underperforming, it's misleading, to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think the truth is that the reason why we're equally in this space is because we met the minimum requirements.
Yeah.
Of course, right? It means we really met the so-called standards that they put for us here. Right? And if really you can trace a record of all the student activists, my brother, before I think their activism was known, or maybe before they became activated themselves, they were really doing very well. They were passing, they were performing very well.
Yeah.
Right? Others were cum laude students. They were just doing very well like that. Right?
Yeah.
So, and then they become activists, right? And then there's a dramatic change and shift in terms of what you call performing, in terms of academic excellence, right?
Yeah.
There's a shift, and we must try and understand what informs that shift. In many instances, right?
Yeah.
When you become an activist or you're activated, I think you begin to see things in a certain light, like how you see the environment changes from an ordinary student.
Yeah.
Because now you are acting under a different stimulus. You as an activist trying to activate, you are acting under a different stimulus as to compare to a general student. So just passing and getting 80s then does not become the most necessary thing, right?
To you. Yeah.
To you as an activist, what informs your immediate behavior is to activate students, make them aware of their environment. And this thing, my brother, it's time consuming, to tell the truth, right? It's very time consuming.
Very true.
So many activists that then consumed into this process of being an activist and a student at the same time. So they are lost in the process, right?
Yeah.
And really, I myself, I think I am a proponent of academic excellence. I really, because student activism and activism is being demonized now, because they are saying that now they're not passing that nonsense.
Yeah.
So I think we must build a different character.
True.
As activists, to say, let us be able to be disciplined and not be consumed within the process of activating students and being activists, and understand that the reason why we are a student leader, student activist, is because you are a student first, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, academics must be balanced, of course, must be balanced. But passing with 90s is not the best thing that has ever happened to a person, my brother.
Yeah.
It's really not going to change your environment and your life as a black person that exists within white spaces that rejects you every day. You're getting 100, you are still going to be subjected to the very same injustice that you are going to face when you go outside there into the industries. That you go there, you find a young white boy who has never even went to school as an N1, you are subjected to you being his subservient and being a servant under him. You are not a perpetual learner, he is a perpetual teacher because of his whiteness.
And they will make you run this white boy.
And you are 100%, you are 90%, it's not going to assist you anyhow. Right? But it is your politics that you inherited and you were infused with from those spaces by political activists and student activists that are going to then assist you survive and maneuver these waters of the society. Because after all, we do not exist in isolation. You must not think that you're going to be a student forever. You would think you are getting hundreds is the most important thing ever in your life. You pass, you go in the industries, you then face the real problems that we are trying to activate you about, try to mobilize you so that we can mobilize other students, so that we can fight these injustices, so that even when we leave these spaces,
your mic.
Do you understand, my brother? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
So I think the notion is misleading, my brother. There's a lot that takes place. Student activists are depressed. Student activists, they are traumatized. They suffer from trauma of really facing the, and equally, the management in the universities, when you're an activist and you're being problematic towards them, they equally try by all means to really suffocate you academically, my brother. They really are problematic towards student activists themselves. They have an attitude that is bad towards student activists. Even when they are marking your script, sometimes they just see, oh, this is Klogza. Hey, no, this Klogza comes to my class wearing a red beret. He's very, very outspoken. This boy, when I'm marking, I must just be harsh. But
it's real matters.
But we are student activists, my brother. Tina was saying that we can strike and pass. That must be the attitude. We can strike and pass.
Yeah, another thing to everyone who's listening, Leader Klogza is not fighting against you 100%. But he's saying it's not the thing. It's not the thing. But Leader, as we are about to close, people do not know that there are advantages into being into student politics. Another thing, Leader, is that students who participated in student activism and those who did not, they are not the same. I can tell you that there are advantages that student activists get whilst in the university, better even after university. So people are not aware of that. Maybe because maybe I've participated a bit, I can tell you, I can show you comrades that finished varsity and they are working, they are in our positions, and some are working well. Then those who did not are maybe even struggling outside the world. Besides that, actually, the point I want you to dwell on and announce a bit is that the advantages of participating in being an activist.
Well, my brother, I don't know if I should call them advantages, because really we go through a lot. We go through a lot as activists. But I think one thing that really assists us, and I think put us in a better position as student activists, is that we understand ourselves as beings, right? Because we live in a society, my brother, that hates and rejects the color of our skin. The color of our skin is a problem, and it's really a problem. And until people and students at large understand that really they are not jobless because they didn't go to school, it's a lie. Or maybe the students thinking that now they are being underpaid because now they're not properly qualified. It's a lie. You understand? It's always and only informed by a matter of race. Our blackness is a problem, right? But when you are a student activist, your blackness is not only a matter of pigmentation. Blackness now becomes a state of being, a mental attitude. And then when you understand such, and you get to understand such as a student activist, so even when you graduate and go to the spaces where whiteness is practiced, you then get to be able to maneuver those waters. You get to understand yourself within that space that rejects you.
You got a proper training.
And we have already a proper training of understanding the world and the society that you are within. You don't get there and then be depressed and say, no, I want to leave this job. I want a new job now. At work, you see, white people are doing this. They hate me. You go there understanding and expecting such treatment, right? And it assists us to be able to think, my brother. I want to thinking. It's something that we need really to try and speak about thinking as students and young people, because I think we really rely much on what you call this indoctrination that we call education. That does not even allow us to use our capacity and potential to the best of our abilities, to a point whereby even leader, now I know a leader that I don't want to work for anyone. Even though I went to school to study, I don't want to work for anyone. I feel like I should produce and really be at a position whereby I'm going to be useful to my people.
Yeah.
So I think and obviously when you're a student activist, my brother, reading becomes imperative. So you're exposed to a lot of revolutionary theory that informs your thinking, to a point whereby you understand that even the education that we're getting, it's really not education, but it's miseducation. So even when you go out there, you know the problem that the society is facing. Then you can then become useful to the community and the society itself. Because what's the use of going to university, pass within record time, go back wherever you go to, but to not be of use to your people and the society? I think that is the advantage that we have as activists, because we get to understand ourselves, our being, our blackness, and how really we are needed by our society, because our communities are sending us to university to come back and be of use to them. But to show you that this education that we're getting, the education that we're getting is problematic. Immediately you graduate, you get a job, you move out from your community, you go to your center, you go to your Rose Bank. It speaks to the problem that young people and students are facing. And really, you cannot realize, you can't realize if you are not active as a student politically, because you are now aloof, you are being alienated away from yourself through the education that supposedly you have been given. So I think
I know, leader, it's very clear that student politics will cook you better for life after varsity. It's been a very constructive discussion we had. But as an activist on a Steve Biko day, what can you say to the students, to other young activists who are still starting, not sure about anything, reflecting from the real activists that you are looking on or are looking upon?
Well, I think we should try and understand. I think we should, as young student activists, we should refer to the history of student activism itself in the country. The likes of Biko, they were not just bored when they started becoming activists and even building movements like your BCM and so forth, right? It's because they were informed by something. And I think Biko understood during that time that our people failed to understand who they are and how they are then behaving within this system that was at that time apartheid and anti-black, right? That is why then he went to write further about black consciousness, speaking to a black person as a state of being, returning a black man to his former glory himself through understanding the fundamental problems and predicament that put us to the point that we're at now. And in comrades, I think student leaders must understand that we have a problem of race in this country.
True.
I think, I don't know what's happening, but our skin pigmentation and skin color, it's really a problem to the system. And I think Biko, they try to speak about such, right? And I think racism itself, as part of the white power structure or white superiority complex, and as a tool of white power rule, it has evolved racism. It has become subtle. Without understanding, without reading this revolutionary theory, we are not going to be able to understand and see it, and when it's being performed, or when you encounter it, right? And equally, it means we need new leaders who then are going to put pen to paper, try to really conceptualize our problems in a different tone that the current generation is going to then be able to resonate with. Because what Biko was saying that time is more relevant more than ever now.
Yeah, that's very much
clear.
true.
It's clear. You go to a protest in Institute of Higher Learning, it's black student, police, they come, they brutalize. When there's a protest, you put white people in front of black students, nothing happens, right? It goes back to what Biko they were saying. Yeah, what they were trying to raise awareness through those means of writing and their activism, right? So I think we should really appreciate comrades like Biko. We must see them as actually our gods to a certain extent, because they laid their lives
down for us.
Mainly for us. And we must be a generation that understands what the generation of Bupiko, the generation of 1960s, 1970s were trying to do, and then take up the baton from them and then continue the struggle, wage the struggle. But you cannot do that if you do not understand and you are proud of yourself as a black person.
True.
It is very necessary that black people understand themselves as beings, are proud of themselves as beings. They should be returned to themselves first before they can try and do anything else outside of themselves. Because I can tell you now, my brother, black people are merely black because now they are black in pigmentation. But their thinking has been engineered to a point whereby they see themselves as deep to white, or they're yearning to become white. That is why the first thing that we do.
Filters, comrade.
That is why the first thing that we do when we are fine, I think we achieve something, maybe they get a job, a proper job, and work nicely and get a proper salary. You move out, you want to be with the white people. You feel like not staying with white people is a problem. It's because we have been socialized and mentally engineered to a point whereby we do not see ourselves as ourselves. We are alienated from ourselves as black people.
Right. Yeah. No, it's well understood, leader. No, leader, I'm very much thankful. Leader. We don't get to appreciate student activists more often, but we get to appreciate you by letting you being in such a platform to bring out your ideology to the student leadership. We thank you for your caliber and the wise words you have shared with us. It's been a wonderful show, leader. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, Nam, I think I should thank the organization again, Arise Black Child. I think what you comrades are doing, the organization is very progressive, and I think you should then take it further, make it very much accessible to the wider community, because really what you comrades are doing, the organization is progressive, and it's what is needed in the current juncture in the society. To speak about black politics, it's very necessary to turn ourselves. You must repoliticize the masses, and it's only through these platforms that we can be able to do that. When I'm a brother, so I'm honored and I'm really honored to be part of this show, the Blacknificent show, the Blacknificent show. During this historical day of Biko Day, I'm very honored, my brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who viewed. Next week, it's another show. Sunday, same time, another presenter. You'll see me next month. Thank you.
Salute.
Salute.